Hey guys, and welcome back to Psychic Celluloid Signals. Today we're seeing Thelma, and tell me a little bit about it that you know.
Well,
I don't know anything about this film actually, other than that it's highly rated and newer, and we're seeing it at the Dryden.
well, uh, to be honest, I don't really know either. I remember it hitting the festival circuit, seeing some things about it, and it getting a lot of praise. It's a genre film of some sort,
Mm.
and it looked cool.
Yeah, it
So
looks really interesting.
yeah, that's all I got. My brain is kind of fried. Uh, as you know, in our last video, we mentioned the short film we're making and how it's about my grandpa. Well, his he's advancing and he's in the hospital right now. So I just came back from there. Uh, at first, we almost called this off, but my grandma was like, "No, you should go see the movie and review it." So yeah, thank you, Grammy. Anyway,
So, yeah, we're excited. Um, Sounds really interesting, as we said. And do you know, was this where is this film made? Do you know?
I don't know, but I'm sure we'll find out.
We'll tell you afterwards, and we'll give you the whole scoop.
Yes.
But we're doing the blind going into seeing Thelma thing. So we'll,
Hashtag blind Thelma thing.
yes. So we'll tell you how it is. Straight up going into it, not knowing anything, and then we'll tell you about it.
All right.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Psychic Celluloid Signals. Tonight we just got done seeing Thelma. Yes, and it's a 2017 Norwegian horror, thriller, suspense kind of film. Fantasy. And came out 2017. And it was made on a budget of about $6.5 million. So it definitely looked like it was made for quite a bit more.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah. So right off the bat, we'll get into what this had striking similarities to, that being Carrie. And would you like to?
Sure. Yeah, so like Carrie, Thelma features a young girl who has telekinetic powers, and she's also was brought up in a very religious family, and she's struggling with these two things, and as well as her sexuality, which is quite powerful.
Yeah, it in a lot of ways this film almost substitutes what in Carrie is kind of like sort of growing up and becoming an adult, and puberty and all that, for like finding your sexuality and growing into like your own mature, like independent self. So there were definitely a lot of similarities, but there was also, of course, differences, as one would imagine, being that this is not Carrie. And a lot of it kind of, I feel like, can be explained simply by saying it felt very much like a a European art house, modern.
21st century take on
Yeah.
Carrie.
Yeah. Um, so that's probably the easiest way to put it. And to delve too much more in might give away spoilers. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. um, because that I think is a pretty.
It's about as accurate as you can get.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what we liked about Thelma, and we liked a lot about Thelma.
Pretty much everything.
Yes. So I'll let you talk about
All right.
first thing.
So, two of my biggest things were the symbolism in Thelma and the discussions of religion and science. These two elements were very compelling, and through the symbolism were kind of given physical form. Science and religion, the two opposite ends, they were given symbolic manifestations.
Mm. I thought it was speaking to the symbolism in the film, or the science and religion aspects of the film. I found it very interesting and refreshing that throughout the film you'll find, like, if you took a snapshot of various points of the film, you might find that you feel this part of the film leaned very pro science. Another part might lean very pro religion, and
Very
then
ambiguous.
you might find yourself at a point where it's kind of going both ways at the same time, which was very interesting and very thought provoking. It makes you kind of think for yourself as opposed to the director outright going and
Telling
saying,
you how you should think.
Yeah, or even how the director thinks. So that was very unique and interesting.
And it was in keeping with the rest of the film, which the entire film is very ambiguous in the way it treats the supernatural elements of the story and the character of Thelma and her parents in some ways, and their relationship. There's still a lot of questions after Thelma. More than answers. Many more than questions than answers. And that was also refreshing.
Yeah.
And it gives you another reason to come back to it.
Yeah. And the film is through Thelma's perspective, which always opens the door for a lot of kind of exploration of a subjective perspective, which this film takes full advantage of. What I mean by that is obviously everyone knows that everyone's subjective experience is a little bit different, or perhaps vastly different depending on the person. While Thelma has some pretty significant personal experiences, and sometimes because we're seeing it from her perspective, it can be kind of hard to distinguish what we're seeing and how legitimately
it really
real
is.
It is. Yeah. So it was very fascinating, and I found at a bunch of points in the film I'd be like, oh wow, that's actually happening, or oh wow, that's was not happening, or sometimes a little bit of a mix.
Right.
Again, as we've said several times, lots of ambiguity, which just made it much more enjoyable to see through to the end.
Yeah. Also, the cinematography was gorgeous, and the casting and acting were spot on. If these two things had fallen flat, then the rest of the film would have as well, I think. And they were spot on.
Yeah, I think Glenn actually noted this right after we saw the film. the acting in particular is very like subtle. There's um, very little changes in how the actor like carries themselves or their facial expression. Just that coupled with like the kind of like awkward silences and such.
The silences were delicious.
They just spoke volumes that volumes of speaking could not have done. um, so yeah, the casting was spot on in this film. I think we had dislikes, but really nothing major. I think I'd say probably really only one notable um, dislike, which was
let's see if they can guess it.
The CGI.
You guessed it.
And there were, for us, three like notable scenes with CGI. I would actually guess there probably were more scenes. And before we kind of talk a little bit negatively about this CGI, we wanted to kind of clarify our stance on CGI as a whole. We're not like, I know some people are very anti CGI as a whole, and I wouldn't say we're that. Um, I'd say we're very much pro, making a choice that's going to be the most like visually
appealing and real looking.
Yeah.
Which some of the CGI was. In particular, the scene with the snake.
Yep.
Looked very fake, but very visually appealing at the same time.
Yeah.
So we gave that one a pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fire, on the other hand, the scene with the fire.
We both voted was the worst instance of CGI in the film. It very much looked like the fire was like a layer on top of the image as opposed to in the image itself, and even less convincing about the fire was the fact that though we see the fire burning for definitely enough time to burn something, there's like
no charred skin or clothing, no tatters, no signs that he was on fire whatsoever.
Which I feel like we both felt also in that scene it would have been at a certain point in the scene, like we don't want to say too much, but there would have been a point where it would have been I think not very difficult to make that. Just even if you wanted to keep the CGI, just include some practical makeup effects in the mix, it wouldn't have been all that difficult. But that was that, and that was the worst offender as far as the CGI. And there was also a part with, well, just without spoiling, there's a window that breaks, and that you could definitely tell. But that wasn't. It wasn't
so bad.
It was very quick as well, and it was it was not as aesthetically nice as the snake, but I'd almost venture to say it was pretty aesthetically neutral.
Yeah.
It didn't like turn me off or pull me out of the film. The only instance was that fire. But it didn't like intrigue me like the snake did. Intriguing.
It was intriguing in concept. In execution, it was more.
Yeah, the concept was very intriguing, and inventive, I thought. But yeah, so those were the three things we didn't really like, or the three like really notable things. Really only being one thing, and really only taking up probably about 2 or 3 minutes of screen time in total, give or take. So the rest of the approximately 2 hours, I believe, of the film was thoroughly enjoyable. And I would highly recommend it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just recommend it
go
to
watch
any.
it.
Really, if you're watching our channel, I would recommend it to you because anyone watching our channel is going to be interested in a film like this. It was superb to see it on the big screen. We were told that it is on streaming services now, but if you get a chance to see it on the big screen, I definitely recommend it. We saw it at the Dryden, and thank you very much for
Thank you.
putting this on.
If you're ever in Rochester, please visit the Dryden.
Yes.
They put on some amazing stuff, and they will be showing 2 other films, which we'll be seeing later next month, and we will be linking them in the description.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely if you get a chance to see Thelma big screen, it really benefits from being on a big screen. We felt
It's a very cinematic movie, which is weird because it's also art house.
Yeah, it really just
it fills it up.
Very very well put. And I think that's all we've got. So until next time, guys, keep it psychic and keep it real.